Hey, I have a question for you. Why was Cinderella so bad at soccer? Because she kept running away from the ball. Happy Father's Day. Today we are talking about all things fatherhood, dad jokes, what it means to me, what it should mean to you, sprinkled in with some testimonials from people with special messages to their dads. This is episode 25 of the Pep Talk podcast. It's your boy, Coach Jay. And dads, I have a question for you. Has anybody given you a pep talk lately? No? Don't worry. I got you. Let's go. Hey, everybody. Welcome to episode 25 of the Pep Talk podcast. I am your host, Coach Jay, a life coach based out of DFW, and it is my honor and my privilege to be here with you on this Father's Day. Of course, when you're listening to it, it'll be the day after Father's Day, but I'm recording on Father's Day, and this episode is going to be about fathers and fatherhoods. We're going to sprinkle in some dad jokes, and we'll have some messages from some other people who reached out to me via social media, and it's just going to be a good time. Y'all know that the mission of this podcast is to cheer you on and to coach you up, and dads specifically today, I want to talk to you because you all are so important. You all are integral, and you know, I like to say that it's easy to become a dad, but it's hard to be a father. Fatherhood is not easy. It's not for the faint of heart. And so just like we talked about mothers, we're going to talk about dads for Father's Day. And I'm excited about this episode. And I think that it's going to be a great time. So if you're listening to the podcast now, I want you to hold up, 3 fingers, Scouts honors, I guess. And I want you to solemnly promise to share this episode with the dad that you know, with the dad that you love, with the dad that you admire, because we're speaking to all dads, granddads, great-granddads, father figures, fathers, and even those who want to become fathers in the future. This episode is for you, and here's where I want to start. So I told you all on the Mother's Day episode that I had 2 mothers. One of my mothers, my biological mom, had just passed away, and that was tough. And I still have my other mom, and I'm really thankful for that. But I also have 2 dads, a biological dad and an adoptive dad who's also my grandfather. Today, I was really thinking about them a lot because of 2 things. What was on my feet and what was on my hand. And you'll be able to look on the Instagram @_JBSpeaks to see what I'm talking about. But on my feet, I had a pair of Jordans. Now, I have never had a pair of Jordans in my life. I have never even really wanted a pair. My biological father, Reggie Grace, he's always been really good about getting shoes for the kids when they need them. And he came out recently for the graduation of my oldest daughter, Kayla. And we were in the store and he was buying everybody shoes and everybody had shoes. And he looked at me and I didn't have a box. And he was like, "Why don't you have shoes?" I said, "Man, you took care of my kids. Thank you. That's good enough for me." He was like, "Man, go back here and get some shoes." And so we went back to the men's section and we were looking at shoes and I was just having a hard time. And he pulled me aside and he said, "Son, y'all have been going through it. Just let me do something nice for you right now because you're giving so much to your family. Let me do something nice for you." And so I went out and I looked at some shoes and I finally saw this pair of Jordans that you'll see on my Instagram post. And so when I swore to myself that I would not wear those shoes until Father's Day. It would be kind of a way of me honoring him. And so I had my suit on for church today and I had my Jordans on and they are bright. And I love them. But in my hand, I also had my camera because my adoptive dad, my granddad, he was a photographer. And I don't know if he does it as much as he used to, but everywhere he went, he always had his camera with him, even if there was a paid photographer at the event. My dad would always have his camera and he'd be maneuvering around the room, snapping pictures, and he would give those pictures away for free. Like he would get them blown up and framed, and he would give those pictures away to people for free. So today, as I had my camera in my hand and my J's on my feet, I felt really close to my two dads. And it was almost a sentimental thing for me. I didn't really come to know my biological dad until adulthood. And it was rocky for us for various reasons. And however, once I got a chance to get to know him and his family, I began to understand parts of myself that had not made sense until I met them, and I began to see how parts of him have translated over into parts of me. And I could tell that from him, I got my love for, brightly colored shoes, for one. But also, some of the charisma of my personality, some of my idiosyncrasies, to the way that I hold my head or the way that I talk to people. Even as an introvert, I have just this natural means of talking to people in a way that invites them in. And he is a car salesman, and he is really, really good at this. I'm not even on his level, but I could tell where I've gotten some of that from him. And from my adoptive father, my love for photography, my sense of duty and honor, those are things that I grabbed onto from him. He was a man. He is a man that is very time conscious, where if you are on time, you're already late. And so I can remember dating my soon to be wife. And if I would tell her that I was going to be there at 7:00 to pick her up, I was pulling up at 6:15, and I was just fine to sit in my car until 6:45 when I went up to knock on the door to let her know that I was there. And so as I'm sitting here and I'm recording this episode, both of my dads are really close to my heart, because so much of who I am has been gifted to me from them, from my ultimate father, God. Y'all know where I stand. God is my Lord. He is my He is my, and so I'm blessed as I'm sitting here thinking to have two dads, to, have two men who both mean so much to me. And as I think about what fatherhood has become for me, y'all, I have 5 kids, and it is incredible to me, the father that I have had the opportunity to become, because of these kids. Each of them, all 5 of them, there are little singularities of things that they need from me. And I remember with our first child, Kayla, the one who just graduated, fatherhood frightened me, but I was ready for it because I was just ready. And fatherhood was never something that I just prayed for growing up. It was never something that I always aspired to, but I knew that it would happen. And so when we had Kayla, I'm not going to say I was ready for it, but I was ready for it. Something in me was ready for it. And then when we had Caleb, while I was nervous about being a father to a son, being a man charged with raising what would be another man, fatherhood took on a different significance. And with each child to come, then Canaan, then Zyla, then Emery, I have grown so much as a father, and I've made so many mistakes, but never once have I doubted that my presence in the lives of my kids meant something more than could adequately be put into words. And as I've had the opportunity to be around other fathers, some who have been able to be with their kids since birth, some who have not been able to have a relationship with their kids at all, others who are working toward abandonment and isolation issues and are waiting for that door to open. I'm saying all of this to talk to you dads, to talk to you fathers right now. Your presence is the gift to your kids. It's not about the money that you're bringing in. It's not about how much you are working. It's not about what you're able to provide for them from a financial means or by bringing food onto the table. Guys, it's your presence. It's about you being available to read the bedtime stories. It's about you being available to have that difficult talk. It's about you being ready and being available to be that mode of forgiveness or that person to provide the discipline. It's important. It's important. And fatherhood is going to frighten you. There have been so many times in my journey of being a father where I have been so afraid. I had no idea what I was doing, if my tone was coming off right or wrong. Was this an issue for mom to jump in on, or was this an issue for me, for my son? Like, when do I talk to him about puberty? When do I talk to him about girls? When do I start checking in with his heart and with his head to see if, he's watching pornography or the kinds of friends that he's, getting in with, or with my daughter who's going to college? Like, when do I have that conversation to her about the guys that you should look out for? Because I was once a college guy, so I know college guys. Like, all of these things, guys, for some of us, these are things for some of you out there, you didn't have a dad to have these conversations with you. So you had to make the mistakes and have these conversations with other men. Or you learned from the homies on the street, the big homies who were on the block. So what fatherhood means for each and every one of us, the way that we do it is going to look different. But I'm going to tell you guys, to be a father is to be present. It is to be responsible and to be accountable for the children that you have been blessed with, whether you planned for that child or not. That child is not an accident. That child is here on purpose to perfect you, to mature you, to challenge you, and to grow you up. Now, that challenge part, I'm going to tell you, when that child is giving you some of you, listen, show that child some grace. Because everything that we put our parents through, it's been said that our children will bring us double for the trouble. Sometimes it's triple. But I'm charging you and I'm challenging you to be fathers who are courageous, to be fathers who don't run away from the conversations, to be fathers who don't run away from the conflict that is inherent in fatherhood, to not run away from telling your son and your daughter that you love them, to not run away from the affection, but to stand there, to be firm in your conviction and in your belief that you matter. You matter. You matter. And where the mindset piece of this comes in is that, number one, you have to believe, you have to motivate yourself into fatherhood. You have to motivate yourself day by day, from the moment you wake up until the time that you lay your head, that this is a day that I'm going to be the best father that I know how to be, whether I had one or not. You may have even had a father in the household who was not present for some form or fashion. So maybe some of you out there feel like you grew up almost as an orphan. I get it. But when you have a child who was looking up at you, no matter what fatherhood looked like when you were a child, you have to man up and be courageous. You have to be willing to try. You cannot be willing to run away. Like that has to be the furthest thing away from your mind. You've got to be present. You've got to be there. You've got to be all in, whether you have custody or not, whether you were living in the home or not. There are no excuses. There are no excuses to not be the best father that you can be. And like I said, you're going to make mistakes. You're going to make your child upset and livid with you. Your child's mom, she may love you, she may not love you. If you're married to her and she's your wife, you may contradict each other in the terms of discipline. but you stay. You stay. You be there. That is the most priceless piece of fatherhood advice and motivation and correction that I can give you. And I give it to you with all the love in my heart from what I've seen across 5 kids, is that you be there. They need you there. Your money is just a cherry on top of a sundae. The gifts is all of that. The Jordans, all of that stuff. You be there. You've got to be there. And when you're there, everything that needs to be figured out can be figured out. But you've got to be there. So we're going to take a quick break. And when I come back, I want to read to you some of the things that a lot of people I knew chimed in on when I made a social media post. And I'll tell you about that post here in just a moment. This is episode 25 of the Pep Talk podcast. We're talking fathers today. And we'll be right back. So last week, in anticipation of Father's Day, I put a post out on my social medias, and I was asking people, what are the characteristics of a good father? Because I wanted to know, because this is not just a topic that I can talk about myself. I want people to have a way to chime in, and this is your invitation. That when you see me put something out on social media, please chime in, because I want to use you. I want to use your knowledge, your life experience, to bless everyone who listens. So, characteristics of a dad, of a good dad, of a great dad. Nikki C says dependability and consistency. Christopher Jones says being present emotionally, physically, and spiritually. JD Buckridge, my guy, says to stop and be present. That's a good one. And he goes on to say, also always taking inventory of their gifts. Speaking of the children. So being a good steward of the gifts and the talents that our kids have. And to not force them into things that don't suit them. Matt Ford says that a good dad should be able to keep a secret. He said, I've found such a high value in this. My kids can tell me literally anything, and if they want it to be kept secret, it is. And they see value in that. You become a partner to them in whatever they are going through. A lot of us didn't have that when we were kids. Amanda Bett says to be present and communicate well. Pastor Shane Munn says, a present dad is a great dad. A good friend of mine, Neil Farrell, he says, not having one has created in me a challenge to do better. I told the boys a few weeks ago that my charge is to make sure they are better than me. Stephanie Kelly, one of the great supporters of the podcast, she says that a good dad is consistent, kind, firm but understanding, a follower of Jesus, and a solid role model. My cousin Terry Gray says there are so many qualities that I can describe in a good dad, most of which I think would fall under provider. But if I were to pick a few, it would be loving and supportive. Dusty Van Gilder said they must lead well. Tristan Smith says the best characteristic of a father is love and understanding, all the things that kids ask for. And then Alex M. chimed in, and he said that the main and foremost characteristic or quality of a good father is making sure the children know that they are not first or second in the family relationship. It's God first, the spouse, and then the kids. You teach your kids this as a man, and they will truly learn what a good parent is and what healthy relationships are supposed to look like. Thank you, each and every one of you, for chiming in on what your characteristics of a good dad is. Dads, fathers, I want you to think about everything that was just said there. And I really want you to put yourself into the mirror and ask yourself, am I present? Am I loving? Am I supportive? Am I stewarding my children, their gifts, their talents, their abilities? Like, how am I measuring up? And this is not a means of you comparing yourself to anybody else. This is about you being the very best dad, the very best father, just the best. Because don't our kids deserve it? Don't our kids deserve it? They deserve the best of all of us. And that's why I tell you that even when I mess up, I've apologized to my kids so many times. But they appreciate it because they know that dad is not perfect. But also that when dad messes up, dad is accountable to you, kids, to let you know that he messed up and that he knows that he messed up and that he is not above humbly coming to you to seek your forgiveness for how he's messed up. So dads, I hope that that has been a blessing to you about what it means to be a great dad. Oh, and also being a great dad means having great dad jokes. So here's another one for you before we go any farther. What do you call a pile of cats? Ready? A meountain. Get it? Okay. I've got to stop with the dad jokes, but they're so much fun. They're so much fun. Okay, here's another one. What do you call a well-balanced horse? Stable. Get it? Oh, I'm gonna lose listeners because dad jokes. Oh my gosh. But you have to appreciate the levity because being a father it's heavy. It's heavy at times. But you're built for it, man. Brother, listen to me. Listen to me, brother. You are built for it. Man out there, you are built for it. And if you have not been a part of your children's lives, I dare you to go find a way to do that now. Find a way to do it. They will receive you. It may not be immediate, but they will receive you. And fatherhood is one of the greatest callings that there is in this life. And my wish is for every man who wants it to have it available to them. And sometimes you got to fight for it. Your kids are worth the fight. They will never not be worth the fight. Fathers, our kids deserve the best. So let's give them the best. Right? Right. So I have a couple of recordings that were sent in of a couple of testimonials, some good memories that a couple of listeners have had from their dads. And I want to play those for you, and then we will move toward closing this episode out. The first one is from my sister, Shara Lewis, who lives with her awesome husband out there in North Carolina. And this is what Shara has to say about our dad.
Hi, this is Shara. I thought I'd share some things that I remember from my childhood about Daddy, since you're discussing Father's Day on your podcast. I remember going to McDonald's after we had the Christmas program or the Easter program at church. Anytime we had some type of event at church where we had either a play or say a speech, I remember us going to get McDonald's afterwards before we went home. I remember him always having a camera and taking pictures at church, at the house, whenever family came. That's why we have 1 million pictures and lots of photo albums at home now still. And one of the things that he taught us is to always be on time. And for him, on time meant early, specifically 15 to 30 minutes early. And yes, he still follows that philosophy to this day. Just the things I just wanted to share. All right, love you.
See, we have the exact same memory of my dad. That's cool. This next one comes from another great supporter of the show, Kathleen Carter. And here's what she has to say about her dad.
One fond memory that comes to mind when I think about my dad is waking up really early in the morning, like 3 or 4 in the morning, to travel to the nearest lake or ocean to go on a fishing trip. So we'd wake up early. We would always stop at Whataburger for the taquitos, and then we would go fishing with my dad. One time we went to Galveston, and I was less into the fishing, more into the exploring and singing to myself and pretending I was a mermaid, that kind of thing. And my dad told me to be careful on the rocks because the rocks were slippery and I could hurt myself. So as I was doing some form of a pirouette on the rocks, I slipped and fell into the water. And as I was trying to grab myself from falling, my hand got a pretty gnarly cut from the barnacles that were on the rocks. So I climb out of the from the ocean by myself, and I don't want to tell my dad because he told me not to do that, and I had hurt myself in the process. So I thought I was going to be in trouble, but of course, instead of getting in trouble, my dad sees that I'm bleeding. He takes his fishing knife and he heroically rips his shirt, takes the piece of cloth from the shirt and wraps it around my hand to stop the bleeding. And I just always remember that moment as just such a here comes my hero moment that my dad had given me.
Thank you, Shara. Thank you, Kat, for sending in those audios. I enjoyed listening to them. Had some smiles and some laughs. That's awesome. And also I got one in via Facebook from Sarah Ann, who talked about how much her father's godly influence, how much it played a role, and how it has shaped her life as well. So thank you, Sarah, for sending that in. I appreciate you. Y'all, I know this hasn't been a typical episode of the Pep Talk podcast, but I think y'all know my heart by now. I long to see every person living a motivated, inspired, and encouraging life, the best life, because it is out there and it's available for each and every one of us. And dads, fathers out there, from the bottom of my heart, I appreciate you. Thank you for how you challenge me to be better. And I pray that I can do the same thing for you. And I think that if we're doing this for one another, then our children are always going to be in good hands. So if you have questions about fatherhood, I would be glad to try to answer any of them for you. If you need someone to come alongside you and to help you, I'm also glad to do that for you as well, or to point you in the direction of organizations and resources who can best do that for you. We don't have a quote of the day today. I just pray and I hope that each and every one of you are reaping the benefits, the blessings, and the rewards of what authentic and true fatherhood really is. You all are necessary, you all are integral, and anybody who says anything differently, blah, don't listen to them, because you are important and you're special, and we love you very much. This has been episode 25 of the Pep Talk podcast. I'm your host, Coach Jay, a life coach in DFW, and it is my privilege and my honor to be here with you every Monday. I'll see you next week. Remember how we always end it. Keep it love, keep it light, and dads, keep it Popeye. I'll see you next week. Be blessed.